Hello, I'm Dustin Atwood with A1 Custom Car Care. I try and spend each Monday with you guys and let you know kind of what's going on in the industry, maybe have a little discussion about what's going on in the world. And over the last week, I had, and I did put some of it up here on the channel, just kind of some thoughts about, kind of where the dollar's going, where the, parts, I hate to even bring up the word tariffs and the cost of everything because I've had a couple of discussions in the last couple of weeks, and it came up, and it really kind of spurred my thought process a little bit. And the reason that I essentially buy and drive older vehicles, and why I think a lot of you out there are doing the same thing. I follow a lot of other people out there on social media, and I've kind of seen this coming up in their feeds. And our shops, A1 Custom is a up-to-date and modern automotive repair facility. And what does that mean? Well, there's a lot of folks out there that have been in the business, and really in my time in the industry has been dominated by the baby boomer generation. And they've done a great job, and I've learned and they have taught me an amazing amount over the years. And I'm very thankful for that. But it's really shifted. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years back that it finally shifted. And I say finally, I would sit in these classes, and I've been taking ongoing education for over 2 decades. And hopefully that didn't break. I've been taking ongoing education actively my entire career, which has been a very, very long time. And the majority of it, I would sit in there, and there was probably a 30-year, at least 20-year gap between me and pretty much everybody else in that room. And it didn't matter whether I was local or I was going to classes in Indiana or I was going to classes in Vegas or Texas, even into Kansas. Just came back from a class down in Oklahoma. So I get around quite a bit for training to make sure I have the best and most current information that is available to me, really for you guys. I have a little over probably 30 different mechanics that I work with every day, and then obviously additional service advisors. There's roughly about 40 people within our company. And a lot of the information that they rely on is that when they run into headwinds, I can hopefully work through it, or I already have experienced it. And that's really the value that I bring to the automotive industry. Is I've done a lot of things the wrong way, and I know that that doesn't work, so I'm not guessing on these vehicles. And then I also know how to overcome a lot of the things that may stumble or, bring somebody to a halt. And so that's what I spend most of my time doing. Do I still work on cars? You see it here on the channel. I share a lot of my personal life with you guys. My shop at home is much different than my shop here, or my shops in Springfield Republic. And we've got 2 Seaburg service centers down in Northwest Arkansas. And I spend at least 1 day a week down there, and we have some great staff that takes care of business down there. So what in the world am I kind of getting to, and what are we going to talk about now that we're almost 4 minutes into it? We can service your late model vehicles, and really there's been a big run, and folks have bought a lot of vehicles over the last couple of years, even during the fear of missing out and the big vehicle shortage and all that stuff. The thought process of this video is really going to be about, okay, if you've got a late model vehicle, are you going to be able to take care of it just like you did your older vehicles, or is it going to be different? And I will tell you with authority that it is significantly different. And it's not just because I want to be working on your cars or any of that. It's the fact that you cannot neglect your vehicles, the late model vehicles, the way you had your vehicles through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. They just won't tolerate it, and we do a lot of service. The reason I went down to and spent a Saturday, I think I did a show probably on it in case you maybe didn't tune into that one, was on transmissions, because the transmissions of today are not hanging out like the transmissions of yesterday. And you could never change the fluid on a Chevy pickup transmission, say 96 to 2010, And that thing might get you a couple of 100,000 miles, may get you more than that. You could do that on a Ford, you could do that on a Dodge, and Dodge has had their own transmission issues. And maybe I'll get on a Dodge rant here in a little bit. And if you're a Dodge person out there, leave in the comments of why it is that you are a Dodge owner and why you choose to be a Dodge owner. And really, has it been a good experience no matter what brand you own? I would love to hear it in the comments and see why it is you choose. Maybe you're a Toyota owner, maybe you're a Ford guy, maybe you're a GM guy or gal, lady, whatever you want to put it out there. And I digress. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I went for a transmission class because I'm having an issue and I really can't refer people to transmission shops with authority. There are some good transmission shops out there, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to make sure that we gear up and we spin things up as a cutting edge automotive repair facility, because these transmissions are doing some crazy things and they're built so differently than the ones that I've worked on for a couple of decades at this point, that I want to make sure A1's ready to deal with whatever it is on your late model vehicles. But back to some of the social media and some other professional, what I consider good mechanics or technicians, whatever you want to call us, a lot of those folks don't drive brand new vehicles. They're literally seeking out and rebuilding some of the vehicles through the late 90s, but really more into the early to mid 2000s. That technology was very refined. So you typically didn't have a lot of variable valve timing. You didn't have displacement on demand. The transmissions were pretty well thought out, and any of the problems that hadn't been, there's solutions or things that have been developed that will prevent that problem from happening again. The parts are, for the most part, available. That's a whole nother discussion for another video. But really the refinement and really the lack of experimentation for various reasons, whether it's CAFE standards, emission standards, etc., those vehicles are pretty straightforward. We'll put it that way, compared to what you're dealing with now. Now, we're not got all the creature comforts on those vehicles, so you are giving up a few things. But what I see a lot of folks doing is A, they're keeping those vehicles. B, they're seeking out those vehicles and putting some investment in those vehicles, even sometimes more than the vehicle's quote unquote worth. And that's a whole different discussion. When I look at the average car payment, it's well above $700. When I look at the repossession rate right now, it's rising at a crazy rate. We had all-time lows 3 years ago. Now we're, swinging. Everything that goes up must come down, or everything that comes down eventually is going to come back up. And so with that all being said, those vehicles are really a lot more dependable and robust than some of the vehicles that, all of us are buying for 40, 50, 60, 70,000. There's a video here on the channel of a transmission that I did a couple of weeks ago that, it barely had, it did not make it to 100,000 miles, and that was a 2020, okay? So what does that mean to you, and why do I think that this is important? Well, a lot of the technology or a lot of the things that I'm talking about that didn't used to be there is now mainstream. So you have variable valve timing, you have displacement on demand, you have 8 and 10 speed transmissions that they're still trying to figure out. And you, as a consumer, are beta testing it and footing the bill on a lot of the exploration of, well, does this work or does this not work? And that is painful on your pocketbook. And I don't want you to be one of those folks. And so what do you do maybe if you own one of those late model vehicles, you're thinking about buying one, or maybe you're going to invest in a little bit older vehicle. So to answer the first part of it, if you own one of those, it's not a bad thing, but you better maintain it, okay? And it's in my service information from several manufacturers, this absolute farce of lifetime transmission fluid. Basically, they have figured out that transmission should last, say 100,000 miles. And I'm just picking numbers out of the air. Now, that's well past their factory warranty. So once it gets past that, it's your problem. And so they can call it lifetime fluid, and they can sell us a bill of goods of that, you never have to replace the transmission fluid. So that's more environmentally friendly. And I like the environment, don't get me wrong. But throwing a complete transmission away or overhaul is not good for the environment either. I think servicing some fluid and then disposing or recycling the fluid that is taken from that vehicle is much more friendly to the environment than letting the whole transmission just grenade, and then you got wasted clutches, wasted steels, valve bodies. There's a whole other discussion. So in their eyes, they're getting very minute and they're looking like this, but in reality, when you look at it in the big picture, it's completely different. So it's a complete, absolute fantasy that it's a lifetime fluid. And you, as the consumer that bought the vehicle and got sold on the bill of goods, that, this is supposed to last forever, and in their forever is like 100 to 150,000 mile window, and that thing's garbage. So one of two things: you're discarding the vehicle, or you're putting an expensive transmission in these things, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. So these 8 and 10 speed transmissions, I really believe you need to service them, depending on whether towing or not towing, pretty frequently. Now, is that a little bit of money out of your pocket? Yes. If you get an extra 80 to 100,000 miles, or even 40,000 miles, instead of putting an $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 transmission in it, I'd be very curious to how you felt about that. I personally would happily do some fluid exchanges out of my pocket, and that fluid's not free to me. My time is not free either. I got a million people trying to get me to do stuff all the time. So I don't have time just to be servicing my transmissions all the time, but I also don't have time really, or want to put the capital out there to put a transmission in my vehicle all the time. I actually pick up and buy a lot of vehicles that have transmission problems because that's the breaking point of the customer. They're like, hey, maybe I paid it off. Hopefully I paid it off. And then the tranny went out. I don't have $8,000 to go throw at a transmission. So I'm going to cut my losses and sell this one. I'm going to go get me another car payment over here because I can manage $600-700 a month. And I'm going to move on about my day. Well, here's what I want to propose at the moment. It can be done to where you can drive a vehicle to 300,000 dependably without having to do some crazy stuff, but it takes maintenance. It takes being proactive versus reactive. And I'm not trying to sell you on a ton of maintenance. If you want to blow your transmission up and come see me, I'll gladly fix it. I'm very good at it. And I got many guys out here that are just as good, if not better, than I am at it. We also have the equipment to prevent the next transmission from having a premature failure. But as much as I need to play my part in it, you need to play your part in it as well. I would prefer to do some services once in a while. I truly think that that's going to be a much more cost-effective and productive use of your time and money, or my time and your money, however you want to look at it. I don't say I don't enjoy doing transmissions, but I really, that's not my favorite thing to do. And I'm seeing a lot of folks go too far, and then all of a sudden it's like catastrophic, and they're like, shoot, if I'd only known, or why did this thing that's 4 years old and make 99,000 miles, why did it give up? My old car, I didn't have to do that to my old car. I drove that thing for 15 years and I never changed the fluid once. Those days are gone for right now. Unless you buy an old car, you cannot do that to these new cars. And if you do, you may not come to A1 Custom Car Care. You may be at another shop or the dealer or whoever. I hope they do you a great job. But you're going to have a hard decision in front of you. And I hope to share with you that a lot of it is preventable. Even the CVT transmissions, Nissan's famous for failures. Some of those cars are $20,000 car. You drive it, and that's what I consider a disposable car, by the way. You drive it 120,000 miles or maybe 80,000, somewhere in that window, and then the transmission goes out because lack of maintenance or design flaws. And all of a sudden you're looking at an $8,000 100,000 mile vehicle, $8,000 repair on a 100,000 mile vehicle that may or may not have other things going on with it. Or you just walk over there and sign up for another car payment. I'm not opposed to car payments. Anybody that's known me for a long time knows that I bought a pickup a few years ago. It wasn't new, but it was new to me. It was a 2016 Duramax. So wasn't a cheap pickup, but I got a good, fair deal. I bought it at Jimmy Mitchell Motors in Aurora, just so you kind of know who I deal with. And I had a $770 car payment, not to mention increased insurance and increased property tax. I didn't love that. I do love the truck. My wife and I have since paid it off, and it's a great truck. I towed a vehicle with it last night. My son and I went and picked up one that needed some work. Somebody was basically done with it. They wanted to sell it for a reasonable amount of money. So it works for a living. It tows, not every day, but it's probably weekly at this point, sometimes multiple times a week. It's hooked to a trailer most of the time. Now, was it worth it to me to have that payment? Yes. But I'm really thankful that I don't have it right now. The inflation's gone up. They're talking about tariffs. I mean, all this crazy stuff. I planned for us as a family, and I do this. My wife's vehicle is not neglected. It's not like the roofer's roof leaks and the plumber's pipes leak. It's nothing like that. I take a lot of pride to make sure her car's in tip-top shape, that we can get in it, hit the keys, and we did it actually this week. We took a round trip, single day, and we do this a lot, back and forth to St. Louis for our little child. We go to Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital. Not monthly, but sometimes a couple of times a month or maybe bi-monthly. So it's very regular. And I cannot have a breakdown. Well, her vehicle's got 256,000 miles on it. I bought it with some problems probably a couple of years ago. We paid cash for it. And I put at least what we gave for it. I think we gave about $5,000 for it. It's an '08 Lincoln Navigator, if anybody's interested. It is a 543 valve. I changed every fluid in it. I did a bunch of suspension work to it. We did timing chains, oil pump upgrade, and really kind of made sure that it was going to be a great vehicle, even at 200,000+ miles. And so I do carry a roadside kit with me. I've done a lot of videos and discussion about some of the equipment that I carry. But we're able to get into that vehicle. We're right at 288 miles from our house to the exit there at St. Louis University, and 288 miles back. So we do that in the morning, we do our appointments, and then we blast home. And so let's call it 600 miles without even blinking an eye. There's a lot of new cars out there that couldn't do that and make it multiple runs like I'm talking about. We do this run, I don't want to say the vehicle drives itself, but I've made that run enough that I really don't think about it. I know what gas station is at this exit. I know I like to eat here. I know I like to get fuel there. I have it mapped out whether we're going or coming home of how and where I want to stop. And so all that being said, we've owned that vehicle now and driven it for at least a few years, 2 to 3 years, without a car payment. And that allowed me to buy the new to us 1 ton in order to pull our camper and just, all the shenanigans that I get myself into, because there's always a deal to be found, or somebody's calling me up and saying, hey, I got this deal. What do you think? And I'm good at fixing stuff. So yeah, I'll take it and I'll make a little money on it, or I'll put one of my kids in it, or I'll donate the vehicle to somebody that needs it. I mean, I've done that quite a few times over the years. But I don't have a car payment. So we doubled up and we got our truck payment taken care of. And at some point, I probably will buy at least one brand new vehicle. I've never done that in my life. And I know you take a big depreciation hit, etc. But where I make up on the depreciation is that I am able to drive it for 200,000-300,000 miles. So as I was, looking at some different things with our fleet and having some discussions, it's not just me as a mechanic, that I've dreamed up this idea that I can invest some money in an older vehicle and continue to drive it. And I thought I would kind of put my money where my mouth is today and say, okay, this is what we do. And it costs me greatly to do this. It's not that I get this all free just because I'm a mechanic. I have a very well-equipped shop at home, but none of that was free in there, by the way. You look at the Challenger lifts that are at any of our facilities. I have Challenger lifts at home. Those cost me money. That is my laboratory for what it is A1 Custom does for your vehicle. So that's where I wring out a lot of our repair processes, along with I have, like I said, 30 other mechanics that are doing similar things. And as a group, we come together and, okay, I've seen this before. This is what I do here, et cetera, et cetera. But our personal fleet, so we've talked about the Lincoln with probably getting close to 260 on it. My personal light duty runaround truck is I have a lot of vehicles, so bear with me on the year thing a little bit. I think it's an 06 or 07 F-150. It's got 310,000 miles on it. I just ran it to Tulsa and back to that training I was talking to you about. I ran it from Springfield to Kansas City to a training the month before, all over Kansas City. And you Kansas City drivers, you guys don't mess around. So appreciate you guys, getting on down the road and not dilly-dallying. So that truck performs good. I'm teaching my son to drive in it right now. The Duramax, I think, has got about 130,000 on it. Like I said, it's a 2016. I plan to get plenty of miles on it. My previous Duramax, though, that I sold, it was still running and driving, still brought good top dollar value. I sold it because it was a 2-wheel drive and it had 0 creature comforts. The only option that it had was air conditioning. Manual windows, manual door locks, abysmal radio in this thing, rubber floor mats. I mean, it was like your roofer special. Great truck, but it had 370,000 on it, and I think I got $6,200. It was only 2-wheel drive. My 16 is a 4x4. So I was able to recoup every dollar I paid for that thing. Plus, I used it and drove it all over the Midwest here, picking up and towing and all kinds of stuff. I've talked a lot of times on here about my Excursion. I sold that 1 ton in my Excursion, which if you have an Excursion out there and you're even thinking about selling it because you don't use it often enough, don't, because you'll regret it. I've bought and sold hundreds of vehicles over the years. That's the one vehicle that I regret, and I will find another one. But it was an 03 4-wheel drive 7.3 Excursion, and it had 470,000 on it. I got top dollar out of it. It went to Oklahoma City. The guy drove all the way up to, I think, Aurora, Missouri, and met him there, and he paid cash and went on, back home. So what am I talking about today? Well, one of the other videos here on the channel happens to be my mom's Trailblazer. Now, it's an 02 Trailblazer. It has a 4.2 liter inline 6-cylinder. It is 4-wheel drive. And I have done a pile of work to that thing. And I want to say she's probably owned it 8 to 9 years, if I had to guess. It's got to be close in there. And I think it had like 140 or 160 on it when I found it for her. I did a little bit of work when she initially got it. We're getting close to a decade ago. And since then, I have put a transmission in it, an entire front end under it, and some tune-up work, some gasket oil leak work, some 4-wheel drive work. Really not a whole lot. Now, we're at 310,000 on it right now. And it really got me thinking this week, like, if I did the math on that, and even if she had a $500 a month car payment for the last 10 years, that's a whole lot of money. And so we're putting, a little bit of money in parts in this thing, and it's a fair amount. Most people wouldn't probably continue to invest in a 300,000 mile vehicle, but it's been a really good vehicle. Has it showed up on the tow truck a few times over the years? Sure. However, in the big scheme of things, it really has not left her, and it's not something that I really want her driving like hours and hours away, but it's something that's done a pretty doggone good job. And when I weigh out maybe putting another $2,000, say, in it, or seeing her fork out for a car payment for the last 10 years, I think she's on the uphill side of this thing. Now, resale value of this is going to be almost probably nothing. So she might as well drive it until something big happens. And her and I have had this discussion that, hey, we've got a new set of tires on there. We're going to make sure the brakes are in good shape. It ended up having a coil short out, and I had done a few individual coils. And when you have a coil short out on anything now, you have a choice because they're all just the same age unless they've already been replaced, and they got the same amount of mileage on it. And so when one goes out, well, maybe it's a fluke thing. And what I figured out is those coils, they really last about 300,000 because we've had actually 3 different failures on this one. And so we decided to go ahead and put a set of coils in it. That way it's done. I'd done the spark plugs about a year ago in it, so I'm not concerned about that. And really putting the investment even into a vehicle that's got quite a bit of miles on it versus going and buying some of what I still consider the experimental technology that is out there today. And there is a big difference there. So a lot of those things that I talked about earlier in this episode, the variable valve timing, displacement on demand, active fuel management, lean cruise, all that stuff, turbo forced induction, EGR, a lot of that, and EGR didn't come from the performance world, but the things that they've added to these engines that have made them less reliable are the things that are having a lot of the problems and are very expensive to fix on these newer cars. Either it didn't exist or it was a very simple system on some of these older cars. And so if it's me, which in this case it is, I'm sharing with you kind of my thoughts on it. If you want to buy a brand new vehicle, so say my 16 Duramax, now that's not a brand new vehicle and we're coming up on 10 years old here pretty quick, but that's still a pretty late model, a lot of technology on there. I am maintaining that vehicle to the max. It's getting fluid changes, it's getting fluid checks, and just because it's a new vehicle doesn't mean you don't need to check the oil and the power steering fluid if equipped, the brake fluid, transmission, differentials, all the fluids. I assure you, just making sure that they're not running low is going to get you tens of thousands of more miles without having to come see somebody like me, or if you're a do-it-yourself person that can do it right. That's going to get you so much more trouble-free miles out of your vehicle than having to come in on a tow truck at 100,000 miles for a large repair. Even some of these engines, I mean, you look at Hyundai, Kia, you look at even some of the Ford open cylinder head deck designs, you look at GM right now, man, they're having some problems. I don't want that to be you. So it's really simple. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, I think is where I'm going with that. I want that for you. And God forbid if something happens, yes, I can fix it if it's catastrophic. But I don't want that to be you. I enjoy fixing cars. I enjoy getting hundreds of thousands of miles out of cars. And I really enjoy doing that without a car payment. I had a customer a couple years ago get a hold of Annie, who runs our Sunset location. She does a wonderful job. And we did a repower for them. I went through the brakes. It was a F250 four-wheel drive. Went through the brakes on it. Went through and sealed up a bunch of leaks. Somebody had tried to do a repair many years earlier, and it basically had just sat for a long time. And so I did an engine repower with a Ford crate engine. I fixed the air conditioning. Some of the other techs helped because I don't have a lot of time. Go through the steering and suspension. That's probably been 3 or 4 years ago, and he's only been back for oil changes because I fixed it all. Now, we spent about $20,000, I think it was $18,000 on that truck, and you're going to think, holy cow, that's a ton of money. Well, when you think about even a $500 a month car payment, that's going to be $6,000 a year. He's going to be money ahead on his investment, and it hasn't been a headache for him. So I hope this resonates with some of you out there. Yeah, you may get some miles on a car, but if you've taken care of it and you do have a catastrophic failure, it's up to you. Look into doing a repower. Look into, making sure that you're preventing most of these failures, because most of them are preventable. 90% of the big catastrophic failures we could have done something about had we got there sooner and maintained the vehicle to where you weren't backed in a corner at a car lot having to purchase a new vehicle. That's a really bad negotiating spot to be. I hope this helps some of you out there. I really enjoy getting to spend my kind of Monday mornings with you guys. I do pre-record it. I hope you're doing well. If you have questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. I work very hard to answer those comments that I can. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, give me a topic to talk about. We'll see you next week.